Welcome everybody. It's 9:00. It's Tuesday night. And nobody's having a birthday or an anniversary this week. So you know what that means. It's time for the Get Off My Lawn podcast. And we are very, very happy to be back. We did duck out on everybody kind of at the last minute last week, so we apologize. But we decided to get an earlier start on Mrs. Sandhills' birthday. And so because of that, I chose her over all of you guys. And it's not that I don't love you. It's just that she's just a little bit more important than anything to me. So, and not just a little bit, it's a lot. Anyway, we're glad to be back and we're happy to be here with everybody. Who do we have out there already going? We've got Calaveras out there, Early Watch California. Dale is out there as well. Guitar Man Pete, Aaron Mortensen, Justin Givens, 402 Outdoorsman, Patriot in the Dark, Frankie's out there. My beautiful bride, Sandhills Sweetheart, is out there. Blue Steel 44, Defense Dad. If you're out there watching, please drop a comment so we know that you're here. And there, we'll put that across the scrolling banner. We can't say hi to you if you don't put the comments up there. So we've got Clint, the best name ever for a screen name, Clint Taurus. G23's in the house. Jay Brown, Tim Donahue, Keith Gregory. Everybody's kind of showing up now. So I'm just going to start the night off by saying this. I almost bumped our previously determined topic tonight. We almost were going to sit down and have a discussion about good cops versus bad cops across the country. And then just talking about protest versus riots and vandalism and things that aren't covered by the Constitution or protected by the Constitution. And I tell you what, after this weekend, after seeing nothing but that for the last 4 days now, I am completely worn out emotionally and mentally on that topic. So we're not going to talk about it. I'm pretty sure that everybody else has probably mentioned it at some point this week on their weekly or daily podcasts. So there's no shortage of people sounding off and putting in their 2 cents. You can sure check any of those out, but it's just not what we're here for tonight. I wanted to take a break from all of that nonsense, and we're just going to have a nice discussion about gun stuff and things maybe you didn't know about guns or gun laws. And it's also Every Second Matters Day. It is the second day of the month, and this is the day that we like to set aside to do things and wear things that will help promote a discussion or spur a discussion so that we can promote gun ownership in a positive and law-abiding way. Law-abiding background check passing, in case Charlie's out there watching. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too, and I think we can just kind of tie everything together because there are a lot of things that maybe people don't realize that are legal on Every Second Matters Day or any other day of the month. It's not just this day as far as laws are concerned. It's all of them. So one of the first things that we'll get into is just the open carrying concept and the things that we do try to do on the second of the month, and we'll get there. But before I do that, we're going to go ahead and let everybody introduce themselves who has joined the panel tonight. So we'll just start here on my screen. Directly next to me, I've got the Tactical Pickle, the California Cucumber, Calaveras 32 Specials in the house. If he can talk between bites. I know he was eating supper.
We're good. I appreciate the invite there, Sandhills.
You bet. I tried to give you a long enough intro that if you were mid-bite, you had time to chew and swallow. I was trying to take care of you. I got your back. All right, next up, we've got Duke Liberty. He's like a squirt gun that shoots jelly, which is really kind of sweet, if you ask me.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate the invite. As always, excited to be here.
Thanks for joining up. All right, we're just going to kind of go around the circle here. One of 2 Nebraskans in the panel joining us from the capital city. We've got Defense Dad. Are you okay? I don't want you to get too much into what's been going on, but we just want to know if you're okay and if any of the foolishness that's been happening in Lincoln, is any of that near where you live or where you work?
First off, thanks for having me tonight. Yeah, I mean, I'm okay. It got at one point it got fairly close to where I worked, but it was after business hours, and as far as where I live, it's a little farther away than that.
Okay. All right, good deal. Well, we're happy to have you here. We're happy that you're safe and sound, and hopefully it stays that way. All right, moving right along, we've got Mr. Squibload. He's a nice guy once you get to know him.
No, I'm not.
All right, well, that's usually code for he's an a-hole, but you'll get used to it. So anyway,
There you go.
we're happy to have you with us. Squib is, as a lot of you already know, Squib's the guy who he's not afraid to tell me that he completely disagrees with something that I say or finds it to be just completely asinine. And I like it when people call me out. If you don't agree with me, that's totally fine. You're always welcome to say so. Maybe we'll have a cool discussion. So I like it when people tell me that they don't necessarily agree with what I was saying. And then, last but not least, also coming to us from now the capital city of Nebraska, but I know it's from a different part of town than Defense Dad. So, Travis, are you okay? Are you safe? And is any of this happening near you?
I'm surrounded by thousands of rounds of ammunition and a lot of rifles. I feel pretty safe right now, but I will say this. They did back down the police presence last night, and they had very little issues. Today, they went ahead and said there would be no curfew in Lincoln, and as of right now on local news, there's been no issues. So I think letting people do their legal, share their legal voices in a manner that doesn't disrupt the public is causing no issues. So it's been a surprising evening. It's been refreshing because Saturday and Sunday was getting a little interesting. So, yeah.
And I think that's the case for a lot of places around the country, and apparently not just in our country, but around the world. So.
And I want to say one thing real quick.
Yeah.
My entire life, I've never had a curfew. When I was a teenager, my parents just said, get home at a safe time, be home by morning so we know that you're still alive, and then you'll be fine. I'm like, okay, thanks, guys. Now I'm 43 years old, and I'm told I can't be out after 8 o'clock. Well, that was last night. I'm like, really? I was like afraid to walk down the street with my dog for fear of getting pepper sprayed or something,
No, yeah, no kidding.
Man. Or shot at. Who knows? Take a gas can right to the face,
Yeah. Just be safe when you go out to walk Ammo Dog there.
Definitely, man, definitely.
And honestly, I think the safest thing to do is make him a true Ammo Dog. So
yes,
if you've got one of those little vests that you can put on him, and it's got
I got a tack vest and everything.
Does it have molly loops? Can you put on a couple magazine carriers?
What did you see my review for it? I did a whole review on it. So
do you have mag carriers lashed onto it?
I can. They're right next to my 3-gun belt. But here, I can show you. Here's the vest right here. Look, I even have a little hanger.
Oh, nice.
Sure. Yeah,
oh, dude.
It's OD green.
Ammo
it
Dog.
My rifle.
He can rock out with his Glock out, at least on a patch.
Look at that. That's legit, bro. It glows in the dark and everything. So
the best thing is I have seen that exact vest with that exact patch on your dog in the ad on Facebook for that vest.
I know they borrowed it.
They put him in the video now for the advertisement on that vest. So
yeah, he's just sitting there on the couch.
If you see that old Gun Channels patch and you're scrolling through Facebook and you see a tactical dog vest ad, just stop and watch the video because you might see Ammo Dog in there. It's pretty cool.
If I may, with the whole curfew thing.
Yeah.
As a teenager, I never had one either. Nowadays, curfew or not, I don't like being out of the house past 8 o'clock most nights. So, maybe I'm just weird.
My wife is over here nodding her head because that's kind of how she feels too. It's funny because I'm the extrovert. She is definitely not. She would just as soon have, 2 or 3 people and have an actual conversation than go out and be around a whole crowd of people. But at the same time, I completely understand. I mean, there are days at the end of the day, even being a people person, I'm just done with people. And usually doesn't happen on Tuesdays, so I'm not burned out by the time we come and hang out. But some days, even being a people person, I'm ready to be home, do nothing, and do it with nobody except Sandhills Sweetheart. And sometimes doing nothing is the best thing to do at the end of the day. I like it.
There you go.
All right, so we will see if we can get Defense Dad back in here. He dropped out for a second, but hopefully he makes it back. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and get things kicked off here. So I just want to start off, and I should do this every week, and I'm going to try to remember from now on every week. Our defense dad made it back. Okay, so the views and opinions that are expressed tonight by me are strictly mine. My views and my opinions don't reflect on anybody else in the panel, and the same goes for them. Each person is their own person. They have their own views, and something that they say does not necessarily mean that we agree with it or that we feel the same way. And everybody's free to speak their mind. We do request one thing in the comments and in the panel. We just keep things to a kind of a PG level because we want this to be a podcast people can listen to with the kids in the room, or you're not upset if grandma hears you listening to it, or if any of my relatives happen to watch. I don't want to embarrass them. So anyway, that's all that there is there. We're going to get this kicked off. Every second matters. One of the first things that maybe a lot of people aren't aware of, and again, this goes back to, we've got a ton of people that are buying guns for the first time and have never owned one. A lot of people don't know that they can carry one without a permit in a lot of states, in a lot of jurisdictions. Don't worry about me. I'm just the host. I can't talk. So, and we'll just let everybody kind of talk. I will speak for Travis and Defense Dad because we're all in the same state here. In our state here in Nebraska, you can open carry without a permit as long as any part of the handgun is visible. It's not concealed. So, I mean, as long as you've got, if you've got an inside the waistband holster, but you've got it, it's not covered by a shirt or a cover garment, and the the grip of the gun is readily visible, that's not concealed. That is totally legal to do without a permit if you are not otherwise prohibited from possessing a handgun. So let's kick it over to the two
Michiganders.
That makes them sound like they're geese.
Michigan.
Anyway, Duke and Squib, I'll let you two just kind of not walk on each other here, but I think I know the answer. But as far as open carry, permit, no permit, is it cool? Are there certain parts of the state where it's not cool?
I was open carrying a gun today.
I saw that.
Here's the thing. It's a trespass thing. If you go into a business and they don't want you to open carry, they have to ask you to leave. It doesn't have to be the manager or the owner. It can be somebody who works there. If they ask you to leave and you refuse, at that point, they can call the police, and the police will arrest you, not for having a gun, not for open carrying, not for concealed carrying, not for trespassing, criminal trespass. That's what it is. Now, there are some places where you can't take the gun like into a court building, right? Unless you're a cop. So the Michigan State House up in Lansing, you can go in there with your guns. The news made it sound like it was just this big thing. There's a guy with an AR slung over his shoulder. That's not an unusual thing to see when they have a Second Amendment rally there. But the guy that was doing that and made national news, he wasn't pointing at anybody, menacing, making any threats or whatever. He just, what's he going to do? Leave it outside? So right. It's something you can do here. In other states, you can't even stand on the Capitol lawn with a gun. It depends on what state you're on. Here, we do 2A rallies all the time. We got more firepower than the police that are there to protect us, and it's never an issue. Some moron in Massachusetts said that we carry guns at rallies in Michigan because we're afraid of police brutality. The police here don't give us a hard time about that sort of thing. The person had never even been to a 2A rally, let alone one in Michigan, and was speaking out of turn about why we do things here. Now, typically you don't see people walk into, say, Walmart with a gun. But, just because they put a sign on the door doesn't hold the weight of law. They've got to ask you to leave. My local liquor store, we call them party stores around here. They like open carry in their store. But the thing is, you can't open carry in a liquor store here unless you have a concealed carry permit. That's the thing. The concealed carry permit actually lets you open carry in places where you wouldn't ordinarily be able to open carry. We've got the same thing as a lot of other states. It's the check, and it avoids a lot of paperwork and makes things easier, whatnot. But one side effect of it is some of the places you're limited to where you can open carry, that's null and void. Now, how the heck they're going to know you've got a concealed carry permit unless you're wearing the thing around your neck? I have no idea. But people also don't go around open carrying, they don't go to McDonald's or Walmart or something like that with a gun to try to prove a point either. So it's nice having the ability to do that here, but I don't see people doing things to try to get it taken away. They are talking about restricting our rights to do it in the Michigan State House because of what happened with these really poorly planned and executed demonstrations they've done recently. I don't know if that's going to go anywhere. I hope it doesn't, but it's just a non-issue. But just because you don't see people walking around every day with guns doesn't mean that you can't.
All right, Duke, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to it is, from my understanding, if you're going to open carry, it has to be viewed on 3 out of 4 sides. So you literally have to carry like a cowboy. It has to be able to be viewed on 3 sides of you: side, front, back. One side and front and back, is from my understanding. Like
Okay.
getting into a car, now you're concealed carrying. Throw a jacket over it. It has to be visible, clearly visible, in my understanding. So yeah, that's basically it.
Cool. All right. Calaveras, now we know that you're out in California. All of the rules and laws are, of course, a lot different there than most of the country. So as far as open carry, is there anywhere that you can even do that in California?
Open carry is 100% illegal, and concealed carry is with permit only, and those permits are issued by each county. Some counties are a lot easier to get it. Other ones are pretty much, if you're not a retired judge or a cop, you're not going to get it. And with the no open carry rule, if you have a concealed permit, you have your firearm on you, and somehow it becomes visible, you're taking something off the shelf at a store, or if you have to bend over and it prints, both of those qualify as brandishing, and you can get in trouble for that.
Wow. Very, very, very strict rules you have to follow. Of course, I can't concealed carry in California because my permit's not recognized. So if I go there, I'm just going to have to trust my wits and the grace of God to keep me safe if I'm ever out in your neck of the woods. So,
And a Bowie knife.
That's where I'm pretty sure, for blades not visible, I think the limit is 3.5 inches.
So a folding Bowie knife with a 3.5-inch blade. Got it.
Very small Bowie knife.
Well, that is legal, but just barely.
Nice. Very cool. All right. And then as far as Nebraska goes, I guess I shouldn't assume that Travis or Defense Dad have nothing else to say. So if either one of you two have anything else you want to jump in and mention, go ahead and do so. I know neither one of you lives in Omaha, but I do know Omaha is a glaring exception to the open carry rule. It's got its own, or open carry law. It's got its own set of rules over there. Anybody want to kind of talk about that? And then anything else you guys want to say?
I got to be honest, man. I don't know what Omaha's rules are because this is the first time I've lived in this part of the state. It's really never been an issue in Omaha. I mean, I've hardly ever been to Omaha, to be honest with you, to carry. That wasn't, work related. So what are the rules for Omaha? Isn't it special permit or something to have a pistol in city limits, or what is it?
Well, on as far as purchasing, they have to report them. I'm not sure about carrying.
That's only in the Omaha metro area, not the suburbs, though, right?
Yeah, as far as I know.
Yeah, I don't know if like La Vista, Papillion, if they have different ordinances or just Omaha proper, but I do know, and I would just, when in doubt, better safe than sorry. But to possess a handgun in Omaha city limits, it has to be registered with the police department. Even if you're traveling and if we decide we're going to go to Omaha for the weekend, to possess the pistol in town, you have to register it with the police department unless you have a concealed handgun permit, and that will supersede the requirements to register it with the city of Omaha or with the police department. What I've been told, and this is from a very, very reputable source who works actively fights against these dumb legislations, is that if you don't have your CHP, you have to apply to the police department to get the registry or the permit, basically, and it's not a shall issue, so they can deny it or at least delay it. and then you can't even have the thing until the police department says that, they feel like you should. So I don't know the exact rules or the ins and the outs, but I do know that the person that told me that I trust what they say. And that's one of the things that we would like to see changed in Nebraska, where we've got preemption, to where the state constitution and the state laws are everywhere, and no jurisdiction has more restrictive laws than what the state laws are. That would just make things a lot better, and for you guys in Lincoln too. So tonight it's not just going to be, did you know that you can do this? There's also going to be some things, did you know that you can't do this? And then we can kind of get into some of that. But one of the next things I want to talk about is the whole reason we're having this chat tonight, because Squib and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago when we were talking about dumb gun laws and the reason why we don't like gun control legislation. And one of the things that you were talking about, Squib, and I'm just going to kind of let you say it in your own words, but I know this is something that you found out, that Michigan and Nebraska are drastically different when you were out visiting Travis here a couple years back, as far as transporting and things like that in the back seat. So I'll let you just kind of tell everybody else what you were telling me and what the differences are and what you found out is okay in certain parts of the world.
Yeah, so we were I met Travis in person for the first time. We went right to his range, which is an awesome range. We spent the day shooting, and then we went back to his house. And when we got there, he said, "Would you mind getting the AR out of the back seat of the Jeep?" And I opened the back door to the Jeep, and there it is, sitting on the back seat with a mag in it. And I'm like, where's the case? And in Michigan, we would have to transport a long gun under FOPA. You're not going to have it loaded. You got to keep the ammunition separated where you can't physically get to both the gun and the ammunition, and it's got to be in a case. And if you're concealed carrying a handgun, that's different. That can be on you. And there's some other stipulations to the law. I mean, for example, if you go somewhere where you can't bring the gun in with you, I guess you can lock it in your glove box and stuff like that. But for the most part, just transporting a long gun around, you just wouldn't do that. And Travis explained to me, he goes, "Yeah, I can carry that AR-15 loaded in the back seat, but I can't carry a shotgun. Isn't that weird?" And it's like, okay, yeah. I'm not saying, here's the thing. Whenever I talk about a place that has laws that aren't as restrictive as mine, or I talk about places that have laws that are more, people seem to equate that with, I like gun control. And I never said that. I said a long time ago, I used to be for gun control for different reasons. So I understand why some of these people think the way they think. That was a long time before some of you were born, okay? But it seems that whenever I say something about a gun law, people instantly go down that rabbit hole. And if that's what you want to do, you're just ignorant. But I was totally surprised by it. And if you sit there and you compare Nebraska to Michigan, or Michigan to Georgia, or North Carolina to South Carolina, like in the last chat, you're going to have an advantage and disadvantage in every state. We would like every gun law to go away and it just be the Second Amendment shall not be infringed. But the reality is we live with the limitations in our states every single day. And as law-abiding citizens, we comply with it. And anybody out there says they don't, if you got a concealed pistol license or a CCW or CHL or whatever they call it in your state, you're complying.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And that is definitely one of the, I guess, one of the laws that I wish we could change. I'd like to see the whole nation go to constitutional carry, but I can't call myself a law-abiding, background check passing citizen if I break the law. And even if it's a law that I don't agree with, I'm bound by it right now, because unconstitutional or not, it's not going to end well for me. I may be the martyr that, spurs change down the road, but I'm still going to be the one that gets punished if I break that law. So, I mean, again, there's certain things that I'm not willing to chance, I guess. And that's just me personally, but yeah, I comply with a lot of things I don't want to comply with, because the consequences for non-compliance are greater than what I want to pay. right now I have to wear a face mask at work every time we have a customer inside the store. And I don't think that's right. And I don't think it's doing any good. But do I wear the mask? I absolutely do, because I like my job, and my paycheck would stop coming if I didn't have it. And I wouldn't have that job if I didn't wear the face mask. So we all comply with a lot of things. All right, let's open this up as far as anybody else on the panel. Has anybody had any other experiences kind of similar to Squibs, where you went to a different state and you found out all of a sudden, hey, this is not at all like what I'm used to back home, whether it's less restrictive or maybe more restrictive? Has anybody else had that experience personally, not just getting told about it, maybe one of these chats, but where you went to a different state and said, oh my gosh, I didn't know that you could be this free, or oh my gosh, I didn't know that people could live without freedom?
I kind of experience that when I go down to Texas every year to visit my family, because before Kansas was constitutional carry, I had to look up the laws for Kansas and Oklahoma and also for Texas. And I mean, it isn't just like Nebraska. You can't just assume it's going to be like Nebraska. So I wish there was an easier way to find out what the laws were that you had to follow, because when you go into their firearms laws, you start to look at all the codes and all the exceptions. And it's like, okay, so does this say I can keep the gun in the car or not? Does it have to be on me? Do I have to have my CCW? So that it really is kind of a headache, and you end up just kind of going the FOPA route sometimes because you don't know what the law is. I know that sounds ridiculous. I even got an app for it, and it's not always 100% clear. Like, the stuff you can understand is, do you have to let the officer know if you have a weapon? Do you not? But when it comes to, does the weapon have to be out? Does it have to be in the trunk? Does it have to be unloaded? I mean, with all the states having all these different laws, I know we did a trip from Lincoln to Orlando in our car, and there's a couple of states we actually avoided because I didn't want to have to disarm on the trip down there, because they were not in, what do you call it? They don't reciprocity with Nebraska's concealed carry permit.
They don't recognize your permit.
Yeah, I think I spent days researching all the different laws and stuff, and it really is a headache for people that are trying to follow the law. It's almost like it's set up so you can't, so you do get caught. No, that sounds ridiculous, but it's so easy to screw up, especially if you're out of state.
Yeah, and there are some really good websites that take the time to keep up with each state's laws as best they can, and they're constantly changing. But I know personally, being a USCCA member, their website has got some great stuff on it as far as keeping up with all the state laws and letting you can pick your home state and then pick the state you're traveling to or through. It'll tell you everything basically that you need to know as far as transport, carry, things like that. If your permit's recognized, certain states have more than one permit or more than one level of permit, so it kind of tells the differences between those and what's recognized in other states and what's not. So and it's not the only website. There are lots of them out there that have those different things on there that you can find. So they're really great tools to be able to find that. But again, when in doubt, you can always give a call to the state police, or if you're going to be in a big town, you can call the local police department and see if they have any specific laws or ordinances, just to their town too. And it's one of those things where if you get caught and you weren't aware of a law, that's not going to get you out of anything. Just saying, well, I didn't know, that's never going to be a defense. So keep that in mind if you do have to travel, especially from state to state. Okay, Calaveras, you were going to say something. I think you had an experience maybe kind of like that once or more than once.
Well, that's where I was going to ask, does it, only for the one, if it's only the go to the other state and, oh, hey, I didn't know that, or was it, you're planning on, going and the other states are going to be different? Just trying to clarify so I can answer correctly.
Sure. Well, I mean, go ahead and answer whichever way you want to go. I mean, in Squib's case, he wasn't breaking any laws. He didn't find out the hard way something he didn't know. But at the same time, I mean, it was just one of those things where, it never would have occurred to Squib that Travis would be, driving down the road with a firearm in the back seat and not in a case, and that would be legal, so it was kind of an eye-opening thing for him. So maybe that was your experience, or maybe it was one of those things where you did the research so that you wouldn't get surprised. But go ahead and tell your story.
Probably the most relevant one, or the most recent at least, was last November going to Tulsa. Going from when we crossed out of California into Arizona, it went from pretty restrictive to constitutional, and then of course the same thing in when we were in Oklahoma.
Mhm.
So that was it. Even though I didn't have a firearm to carry at the time, uh, but it's just kind of nice to know that there are some states that are more lenient, and they're not nice way of saying this. They're not as crazy restrictive as my home state.
They're not like behind the Iron Curtain. Gotcha.
Correct.
I hear what you're saying. All right. Does anybody else have anything they want to jump in with a similar experience? All right.
Nope.
Okay, so let's just kind of open this up. I guess I've got one more that I kind of had thought that we would talk about, and then I'm just going to let everybody else kind of jump into with other things that maybe you've thought about that maybe not everybody knows. But here's a big one that a lot of people aren't aware of. We see so much, and not right now because other things are dominating the headlines or dominating the news. But when it gets back time to talk about more gun control again, as if that actually does anything. One of the things that people don't talk about, and it's not really, it's widely known to us that own guns, but a lot of people that don't own guns or aren't around guns very often aren't aware. It's totally legal to own a machine gun as a civilian. Now there are a few more restrictions on that purchase than just going to Walmart and walking out with a shotgun. But at the same time, machine guns are not just for military or police officers. Civilians can own them. And a lot of people don't know that. And now I'm hoping that I'm not actually going to jinx anything when I say this, but it's crazy that there are proposed laws right now that we're not hearing about because, again, there's other stuff to talk about right now, but they haven't gone away. Some of these bills that are getting proposed by the Senate and the House that they want to basically ban anything that's a semi-automatic rifle, anything that's a semi-automatic shotgun, even a lot of semi-automatic handguns are thrown into some of these bills. There's no language whatsoever outlawing NFA items. And it's crazy to think that, if a law would get passed and forbid the president doesn't veto it, goes ahead and signs it, that, the Ruger 1022 that I own could be possibly outlawed. But if I had the money to go buy, a machine gun, a fully automatic rifle that is legal for civilians to own, and there are some that are not. We're not going to necessarily split hairs tonight, but the fact is that civilians can own fully automatic rifles. And I could still go do that. I could still go, if I had the money and did the right paperwork, I could still go buy a Thompson submachine gun, fully automatic, and own that, even though my semi-automatic 1022 wouldn't be legal. And it just blows my mind that people aren't aware that these things are okay to own. Same thing with silencers or suppressors, whichever term you want to give it. But that little thing that screws on the end of the muzzle to make the report quieter. Actually, we'll cover those in a second. So as far as fully automatic goes, I'm sure that everybody on this panel already knows you can own those. Have you had any conversations, any of you, with somebody who found out in that conversation for the first time that civilians can own fully automatic? We'll call them a machine gun because that's what they're classified by the ATF.
So a few years back for Christmas, everybody got an AR-15 underneath the Christmas tree, right? And my in-laws came by to see us open our Christmas presents, and that was the last thing we opened. And my father-in-law, who's a veteran, pulls me aside and he goes, "Those full auto?" And I had to explain to him that I wasn't willing to do the paperwork and pay the money to get them full auto because that is legal. And just because they look like the M16 you carried in the 1960s, these are not M16s. And, I hear people all the time say, well, you can't own a machine gun made after 1986. Wrong. Yes, you can. There are legal ways to do it. Absolutely 110% legal. If you're willing to do the paperwork and pay the money, it's kind of a hassle. And for some people, they don't want to pay a penny more, and nor do, once again, this is me talking about this. People go, oh, he's all for restricting this. No, I'm saying right now, to be within the law, you've got to do certain things. You've got to pay certain fees. Whether I agree with them or not, I don't, but it doesn't matter. And that's just it. People believe what they want to believe. Not to mention, honestly, the bad guys don't care about any of that stuff. So if they wanted to get a full auto weapon, something stolen from the military or law enforcement, it really wouldn't be a problem for them. That's what the gangsters did in the 30s. But, he just took one look at those and instantly assumed that they were full auto because of the way they looked.
And I think that happens more often than not to the, I don't want to say uneducated, but to the uninitiated people who haven't been around guns like most of us have here in the chat. Definitely the panel, and probably most everybody in the chat has been around guns to some extent, some maybe more than others. So, but by and large, the majority of the American public, they're not gun owners, right? We're not, as far as gun owners go, not quite half of the U.S. population is known to be gun owners. So we're still maybe the plurality, but definitely not the majority of the citizens in the country. And a lot of them aren't aware that that's okay. And a lot of them, again, aren't aware of some of the basic stuff that we all take for granted, that just because it looks like something that, you see in the movie Platoon or in Forrest Gump or something like that, they may look identical, but the insides are much different. So it's kind of like it. Honestly, if most people can relate at least a little bit to cars, if you can have two Ford Mustangs sitting side by side, one of them's a GT, one of them's not. They look identical other than a few markings on the outside. But once you pop the hood and look inside and look at what makes them go, completely different critters under the hood. So rifles are like that, especially the M16 versus the AR-15. They might look identical, but what makes them go is totally not completely different, but enough different that they're not the same.
Here's one that drives me nuts, man.
Yeah.
Use of the term assault rifle. Oh my God, whether it's on the news or even my own family. Oh, those two guys walked into a Walmart with assault rifles. I go, oh, they had selectable fire machine guns, Mom? She's like, what?
Now,
my mom knows guns, but it's like,
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
And again, I don't always like to split hairs, but I think this one's important. At least the term assault rifle is real. I mean, there are such a thing in the world as assault rifles.
Yes, I actually give people a history lesson when they incorrectly use that. I go, oh, you're talking about the gun that was named by Adolf Hitler. And they are astonished. What do you mean? And I say Sturmgewehr. Sturmgewehr, that's German. It means assault rifle. Adolf Hitler coined the phrase. It's actually an MP44, which actually became later the STG-44. Would you like to know more about it? It just shuts anti-gunners down. They don't want to have anything associated with that. No, that's not. I try to explain to them what selective fire is, and it's just another technical term that goes over their head.
Yeah, but that's very much true. So again, just in case there's somebody listening who didn't grow up around guns or hasn't got a lot of experience with guns, an assault rifle, and it's kind of come to be more of a catch-all term, but it is a military issued rifle. It shoots a rifle caliber cartridge, so not a handgun round, not a 9mm, not a 45. It's like a 223/5.56 NATO or bigger. But it's fully automatic, so when you hold the trigger, it just keeps shooting until you let go of the trigger or until it goes empty, one or the other. And it's military issued. That's an assault rifle.
No. It's a shoulder. It's a shoulder,
and it's got a shoulder stock.
It's a shoulder fired rifle or intermediate cartridge weapon that has select fire capability. That's it.
Even
not
a rifle,
military, not that it's 223, not that it has full auto, because it could have burst or both.
Okay.
It has to have a select fire. It has to fire an intermediate or rifle cartridge and has to be shoulder fired. That's an assault rifle.
Okay. As opposed to a term that has been made up and doesn't mean anything other than what people want it to mean is assault weapon. There's a huge difference between assault rifle and assault weapon. Assault weapon is a catch-all that means basically whoever's drafting a bill for legislation, assault weapon means it's something that I don't like and I want to outlaw it. That's what assault weapon means to me, and I'll just define it however the heck I want. But it does not talk about select fire. It doesn't talk about burst. It doesn't talk about fully automatic. It just talks about semi-automatic. Typically, what people mean when they say assault weapon is a scary looking rifle that is still semi-automatic. When you pull the trigger and hold it down, it only fired one round, and it won't fire again until you let the trigger travel at least far enough forward that it resets. If not, you let it all the way forward. It again, that's a gun person difference there, but you have to let the trigger go forward and then pull it back again to fire that second shot. It won't keep firing as long as you hold the trigger. Somehow this has come to mean assault weapon, and that one bugs me. Because again, it's a catch-all. It doesn't mean anything because it's not clearly defined. They're constantly changing the rules and moving the goalpost on what is defined by the term assault weapon. And so that one, I think for most gun owners, myself definitely, that one just gets our hackles up. We all cringe when we hear the term assault because we know typically what is meant by that or what's coming afterwards.
And usually, if some assault weapon involves some sort of scary features, barrel shroud, a shoulder thing that goes up, this kind of thing. So,
yeah, often an assault weapon is defined by the cosmetic features on it as opposed to how it functions. It would be kind of like saying a race car is outlawed on the streets. You can't have a race car. Well, what defines a race car? Well, it's got a spoiler. It's only got 2 doors.
It's got a loud engine.
It's got loud pipes, something like that. That doesn't change the fact that it's still the same motor under the hood as anything else. And again, that's not to talk about noise ordinances or emissions, any of that. That's the point is that changing the body panels on an automobile doesn't change what it is. It's still an automobile, but that is how firearms get treated sometimes. If it's got a pistol grip and heaven forbid a vertical forward grip as well, that you can easily control the thing and hold on to it. And it's got some sort of a barrel shroud. So as you're holding on to it, it doesn't hurt your hand because it got hot, and all these things that we do for safety and for control. That might be an assault rifle. Whereas a different firearm with a wood stock and none of those features that fires the exact same round from the exact same magazine, so same capacities, all that might not be classified as an assault weapon. And they still work the same. They still do the exact same things. It's just one of them looks different than the other. And it's completely asinine that we would make that classification and we would discriminate against something based on looks. I thought that was illegal in our country, but apparently it's not. Apparently it's not. So, all right, going back to the going back to the topic there. Sorry we got off on that sidetrack, but I think the distinction between assault rifle versus assault weapon is an important one, especially as we're talking to people who haven't been around the discussion very much, maybe are newly getting into it. Again, the more people we can educate with the truth, the more chance the truth has to take hold. So,
Something that happened to me recently with regard to gun laws is that I had said on air, it might have even been this show, I can't remember, that you can't shoot on state land in Michigan. And that's because a DNR officer told me that when I asked about it, right? So somebody was listening and they got my email. It's really easy to get. You go to the About section on my channel. I don't know why people set up a channel and they don't fill that out, whatever. Anyhow, so somebody emailed me a PDF of the state requirements for shooting on state land. And as a matter of fact, in the state of Michigan, you can shoot on state land, but there are stipulations. And those stipulations, just like a tax stamp or anything else, is something that at this point, I'm really not willing to deal with I'll just pay to go shoot on a range. However, it is possible to do. And that was something that I didn't know. Just like previously, I didn't know about the Michigan CPL allowing me to open carry in places where I couldn't, or things like that. Laws change, or you can't necessarily trust the fact that somebody's brother's cousin's uncle's former roommate is an ex-cop and they know all about gun laws in your state, even though they've never been there. This is a DNR officer, and they control the state land here that told me that, and it was absolutely wrong. I'm glad the person, and I can't remember who it was who emailed me, but thank you if you're out there listening. Thank you for correcting me on that, and Sandhills, thank you for the opportunity for me to admit I made a mistake, and it was a good opportunity to learn. But that's something that there's a lot of people out there that know stuff, but maybe they don't know. They know in their state, but they don't know in your state, or they know an outdated law. For example, when I took my concealed pistol license class, I was in one of the first classes when they made this thing shall issue across the state, and I had one for 10 years. Well, since then, they've reduced some of the restrictions on there. So what I know about the concealed pistol is actually more restrictive than what they allow today. And I've had lots of people call me out on that and go, no, you can do this now. No, you can do this now. So there are some things about, knowing or saying, or going to somebody who's an air quotes expert that, sometimes it's not a bad idea to do a little critical thinking and do your due diligence just to double check. And I don't want to get in a fight with somebody over this, that, and the other. I'll, explain my position, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And there's a lot of people out there that claim to be experts, and just because they wear a badge doesn't mean they know everything about guns or something,
Yeah, in fact, that's often the case. I had somebody here, I don't know now, it's been probably a month or two ago in my store who's a customer, and he was working for his local county sheriff's department, then he switched and is working for the police department for the town where he lives. And I don't even remember now what question I asked. It wasn't really like a direct gun question, but basically I had said something, and I was kind of going to open up the discussion to where we could kind of steer it to guns if he wanted to, and he just shut it down. He said, yeah, I'm not a hunter. I don't, I don't shoot guns or anything. I carry one, but that's, the only thing that I do is I qualify with it, and that's the only shooting I ever do. And I'm like, okay. And that's, that's cool. And I know a lot of police officers are like that, not so much the ones that I know that, I'm friends with. And when I say that, I'm not saying that, well, I'm not going to be friends with a cop if they're not a gun person. What I mean is I've got friends that became cops or for whatever reason, I met them and we hit it off and we're friends. And, but they just happen to, most of them be, if they're not gun nuts, then, they're pro gun, they own guns, they hunt, they do things like that. And this guy just wasn't, and which is, I mean, it's what it is. It's fine. But, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of people who carry a gun for a living who aren't into guns and don't really even care about guns. It's just like, a lot of people drive a car to work every day, but they're not car people. They don't care as long as it starts and it gets them there and doesn't break down. That's all they expect out of their car. So a lot of people are that way with guns too. They might work around them or work with them, and that's it. So, okay. So, I don't know how much there really is to say about suppressors. I kind of brought that up earlier. You can own them. You can own them in. Oh shoot! I just interviewed a guy that works at one of the biggest silencer retailers in the country. At the Norfolk Gun Show. You can find that video, and you can get the numbers from that video from what he says. But I do believe that it's in the 40s, the number of states where you can own a suppressor. I think it might be about 48. I think he says there's not that many states that you can't get one. So, but not a lot of people understand that that those are legal to own. But the biggest thing that I would bring up when we're talking about a suppressor, you can say silencer. Well, two things. First of all, a lot of gun people aren't aware of this. You can say either one, and it's fine. You can call it a silencer. You can call it a suppressor. They're both right. Neither one's wrong. But the fact is that what you see, or rather what you hear on TV and movies, is very, very misleading. You can still hear a report when especially the first time, the first shot through a suppressor. It's usually a little bit louder than the subsequent shots, because it's it's not full of propellant gas until that at least the second shot. But yes, it makes it quieter, and that's why a lot of people prefer the term suppressor, because it doesn't make it silent. It just brings the decibel level down to where it's safe, without hearing protection usually. And again, depending on the caliber, there's going to be somebody out there that says, well, a suppressor on a 50 caliber BMG sure doesn't bring it down that far. Okay, I get it. But for the most part, you can shoot it without hearing protection, as long as you're not shooting it sustained. It's like anything else, even medium volume things for a long duration can be harmful. But for the most part, they're legal to own. They are they used to be, before the NFA, they were marketed as a courtesy. So if you decided you wanted to target practice in the backyard, maybe with you had a rifle that shot 22 shorts or something like that, and you wanted to put the silencer on your rifle so that you didn't bother the neighbor having his Sunday afternoon nap next door, or something to that effect. Or maybe you had a small gallery set up, maybe in the basement. Some people did. And ventilation issues notwithstanding, having that suppressed indoors would be a lot safer for the ears than unsuppressed. So does anybody have anything else they want to throw into the discussion about suppressors or silencers?
Can I complain about suppressors for a second?
Yeah, feel free.
That's a gripe. Why are they so freaking expensive?
Because they're controlled.
Can they really cost that much to make? I mean, they're such a simple design. And here you can get a solvent trap for $15 off eBay that, you know what you could do with it. It's going to have about the same kind. I mean, it just kind of, I know there's a lot of engineering that go into these things. There's manufacturing costs. They're going to be made in the USA. But I mean, I'm looking at dead air suppressors, just to pick a brand, $750, $800. It's like, come on, man. And I know you're going to buy one, and that's going to last you a while. It's going to fit on multiple firearms and stuff. But still, if they were cheaper, I would spend the extra money and, unfortunately pay the tax stamp. I'd put them on every weapon if they weren't $900 a piece, $800 a piece.
It's that old catch-22 though. Part of it is because of the basic laws of economics, supply and demand. Because A, not everybody realizes they can own it, and B, it's such a pain in the butt, and a lot of people just don't want to go through the hassle of setting up a trust for the NFA item, going through the tax stamp, having to buy something and you can't take it home because you have to wait for that tax stamp to come back, and it's typically going to be months, possibly more than 12, before you get that phone call that says, hey, your tax stamp came in, so this thing that you paid us for a year ago, you can finally come take it home. And so that is prohibitive to the purchase for a lot of people, along with the price. I'd probably
go ahead, man. Go ahead. No, I'm surprised that you go. You go.
I'd probably be willing to spend the money.
All right.
If first of all, it's a good suppressor, depending on the caliber. Yeah, you're going to be looking anywhere from $600 to $1,000, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. But again, you're going to add another $200 for the tax stamp on top of that. And so that gets up into some bucks that not everybody wants to spend. If they were cheaper, I'd probably go through and do the paperwork and do the weight. I'd be okay with it if it was more affordable. And it's just because of all that, it's not as high on my priority list. Although I'd love to get one for my TX22 because I've got that barrel or that muzzle adapter that came with it. That would be kind of cool. Hint, hint over there, love of my life, who gets me my Christmas presents. Anyway, but I think that's a lot of it. If we did abolish the NFA, or at the very least remove silencers from the NFA, then there would be more people willing to go put that order in right away. And I think that the manufacturers would be willing to make more of these. And, when you do larger batches, then the cost per unit comes down. It's just like ammo. 9mm cheaper than 380, even though it's got less brass, less powder, less lead, less everything, except for it's also got less demand usually. And so because the manufacturers don't build or don't load 380 in as large of lots, then the cost to load that is higher for them. So the cost then gets, or the cost difference gets transferred to the consumer like everything else.
So Sandhills, being in manufacturing myself and knowing what all it takes to make a suppressor.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, if they've got rid of the NFA, you always talk about capitalism. Capitalism would take over.
Yes.
You would be able to make a quality suppressor very cheap. And if one company decided they wanted to do that to get the sales, to get the volume, they're going to put some of these other companies out of business, and rightly so, because that's capitalism. It doesn't cost crap to make a good quality suppressor. Anybody who says that, it's look, there are guys out there that would rather sell you an item, make less and sell it at a higher price and still make the money, as opposed to make a lot that everybody can afford, but then they've got to put in the work. Mass production has its place, and if you want to be the one to walk around and go and look at me, I got the $5,000 handmade suppressor, that's great. You got $5,000 to burn, be my guest. I'm not going to waste my money on something because it is like a $5 item to make. I'm not kidding. But then again, that comes into mass production. And the only reason they're going to mass produce these things is if you lift the NFA and everybody runs down to the store and goes, give me one of them, $100 suppressors, because everybody's going to put their markup on it. But I heard an interview once with a guy who owned a company, and he was talking all this stuff. And I go, what are you talking about? Yeah, we could make them at the auto plant I work at. So, whatever.
Well, sure. I mean, anybody with CNC machine would be able to crank those out, I would think, with not a ton of difficulty. I mean, other than materials and getting that program plugged into your mill would be about it. I don't know what titanium costs versus stainless, or all the different materials that suppressors are made out of, but I do know that the expensive ones are usually made of titanium, and I think that at least right now it drives up the price. Whether or not that's real or perceived value, it's in the price tag. So
you can make them out of plastic, for Pete's sakes. Just make them disposable. If there was no NFA, you could go out there, buy them, and then when you're done, just toss them in the garbage.
Well, if there was no NFA,
out of biodegradable stuff, and you wouldn't even hurt the environment. Then you don't, because you don't. I'm just saying, there's a lot of things that would happen if you lifted the NFA on suppressors.
And that's for Travis. And talk about the price as well.
Yeah.
Not too long ago, I saw a Wish.com ad for a suppressor for $38.
You mean the fuel filter?
No, they sell it as an airsoft extension, barrel extension, but it's
got the baffles and everything else in it.
Yeah, it's basically. I mean, and then you read the reviews, and the guy's like, "Yeah, it works great on my AR." And you're like, "Oh, I don't know if I want one of those."
Wow.
Now, here's what I wanted to say: is I'm really surprised that companies like PSA haven't come out with $199 9mm suppressor or whatever thread pattern that is. Because if they did, I'll tell you what: if there were 30 caliber or 9mm suppressors out there for $199. And all I got to pay is that $200 tax stamp, I would probably be more likely to buy one, just like that dagger pistol for $299. I'm really surprised PSA hasn't just mass produced a suppressor compatible with 9mm or certain thread pitch or whatnot.
Oh yeah, and one of the things about using StreamYard is I can do this and put the comments right up on the screen here.
Clover's
Clover
got
makes a
one. I
good
didn't think
point.
about that, but
And I think he meant many suppressor companies have patents, so you got to come up with your own design that doesn't infringe, especially on the baffles. I know that that's a lot of the design is, and a lot of the science, a lot of the physics goes into designing those baffles so that it's the most efficient design in there. And yeah, they all have their own thing that makes them unique, and that's pretty cool. So if you go out there and see what's there and then make something that is not on the market and you can market it as yours, and you're willing to, do it for basically, cost plus labor and just a little bit of a markup. Yeah, I think you're right. That could happen.
now, just something I want to counter to what Squib said. And Squib, the only thing I would say is if you're going to make a suppressor company from the ground up and have to source the materials and the labor and the manufacturing, it would take time to make your money back on that suppressor. So I could understand why they might be an
Right, but
expensive
that's
product for
business.
the company. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's
I mean, I
and there are
get that,
people out there who
you know.
won't accept that. They don't. They
Yeah.
want to, and they want a return on their investment in days, weeks, or months. It takes years. But if you're already out there making other gun accessories out of aluminum or plastic or steel, it's nothing to add this to your manufacturing facility. Or you can even farm some of this stuff out initially, and then once you start making the sales, you can buy the tools and bring it in house and really cut your costs and improve your quality control and everything. I mean, these are normal manufacturing things. So whenever I hear somebody talking about using space age metals and all this stuff and blah 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 blah, they either don't know big business, they know little Joe Blow, I make it in my garage, or they're purposely making it more expensive and more complicated. It's a suppressor. I mean, dude, you can make it with a pipe and washers. All right. I mean,
It's true. Ooh, High Point could come out with a suppressor.
Yeah.
Technically,
There
they
you
could.
go. Call it the
There
washing
was-
machine. Yeah.
I have actually seen a video where someone, how they did it legally, I don't know, but it was a test just for kicks. They actually made a suppressor out of some kind of clear acrylic so you could see the flash inside it. I think it only lasted for 3 or 4 rounds, but it was more of a proof of concept.
Very cool. Speaking of which, I've never heard of such a thing. That's kind of a cool idea. Clover says there's a range near him. You shoot through these racks with car tires screwed together, making a tube maybe 10, 15 feet long. Really nice for noise control. That would be kind of cool. I never thought about that. I think more indoor ranges should do that. So
Yeah,
that way,
go.
when you're there with your wife, who really doesn't like loud firearm reports to begin with, and then there's somebody 2 or 3 lanes down who is shooting their AR-10, and we're just trying to just put some rounds down range into the target. I mean, that messes with me. When somebody's shooting a 308 inside an indoor range, that messes with me. I can't imagine how much it messes with somebody who's not used to shooting and used to loud rifle reports all the time. So anyway,
that's where, maybe our range here locally needs to do it, especially since they have a 50 BMG you can rent for their indoor 26-yard range.
yeah,
Really?
I have no desire to shoot an indoor 50. I think Omaha Gun Club has that as a rental.
Do it once.
I want to do it once. Well,
It's
more than
fun,
once,
man.
but not indoors. I don't want to shoot one inside. I want to shoot one outside.
It's wicked, man. You feel like you get punched in the face every time you pull the trigger.
Couple weeks ago, we were down at I'm going to say our home range. It's the one that's about 45 minutes away from where we live, and we're members there, and it's $25 a year for the first year and $15 a year to renew. So, but it's really cool. It's got 100-yard, 25, 50, and 100-yard backstops at the rifle range. It's got, I think, 6 benches, and it's got a steel roof over the top of it. It's open sided with the steel roof, so even if it's raining, you get to stay dry. Super nice setup. And a couple weeks ago, while we were there was a guy sighting in his 338 Lapua Magnum, and when he got ready to unleash that thing, not only did we get out from underneath the rooftop, because we knew that sound was going to bounce back and forth between the concrete pad and the steel roof, but then we decided, because of the way his muzzle brake was set up, it was going to, send all of the sound out to the sides. We stood directly behind him, about 20 yards back from the bench, and directly behind him. Figured that was about the safest place for sound and everything else. And the poor kid that was spotting for him was lying on the ground next to that bench, spotting through his rifle scope. And I think both of those guys had earplugs inside their muffs. And that's a 338 Lapua Magnum. That's not even a 50. So that'd be cool though. Well, the only thing is he took about 3 shots, and then he busted his scope mount screws, and his scope got loose on him, so he quit.
As I understand, at least from my experience at the outdoor range, when you have someone with a aggressive brake, it can be significantly smaller, and still the report to the sides is going to be uncomfortable. I was shooting I was going back and forth between my 308 and my 223 at the range here late last summer, I think it was. Someone sat down next to me with just a 6.5 Creedmoor, but they had the brake they had on it. I get basically punched in the face every time they pulled the trigger, and about every 5th shot you'd get hit. You could feel a little piece of carbon, hit you in the face.
Yeah, that's not cool. And I've never been around, like even just a deer rifle that had a muzzle brake on it. But that's what I've always understood is they might make a difference in felt recoil, but they're sure going to make a huge difference in the report. So, all right, we lost a few people. We got a few people back. All right, so we've talked about machine guns. We've talked about suppressors and a few other things. I'm just going to let you three in the panel kind of take over here for a little bit. Anything else that jumps out at you when you hear about, we're going to have a discussion about things that maybe not everybody knows about, even people within the gun community. Maybe, you found out that a lot of people aren't aware of, this particular thing. Go ahead and anything else you want to bring up or other topics. Now would be the time. What are you guys hearing in discussions you've been having?
Actually, my phone's about to die. I'm gonna have to bail out. Sorry.
Okay, well, in that case, thanks for being here. Have a great night. If you're not subscribed to Calaveras 32 Special on YouTube, and I know for sure Facebook, where else can people find you on social media before you're gone?
That's where I'm on, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I'm not as active, but I do have, a small channel over at guntube.org. I have some videos posted on dang, the one out of Utah. I just pulled a blank on their name. My bad.
YouTube.
And what was the other one though? That's for Gunstreamer.
Gunstreamer is also in Utah. I forget.
And then I'm looking at seeing if I can't, get my stuff started posting up on Full 30 just for additional backup.
Very cool. All right. Well, thanks for being here, Calaveras. And we'll let you go ahead and duck out before the phone just up and dies so you can do some stuff before you get it plugged in.
Thanks for having me.
So, all right. You bet. Thanks for being here. Okay, Squib, you missed it, but I kind of just opened up the floor to everybody on the panel as far as other things that maybe people either new to the gun scene or maybe a lot of people who've been around guns just didn't realize. What other things would you bring up that, maybe people didn't know?
So I was having a conversation with a young lady at work who was talking about some issues she was having with a crazy ex-boyfriend. And she said, and I was talking to her about maybe getting a gun or a dog for self-defense because she lived alone. And she said, no, I'll just get my cousin to handle it. He's got a CPL. She seemed to think because the state of Michigan issued him a concealed pistol license, he took the class and paid the permit, and all, he had a license to kill. And I had to explain to her, this doesn't mean that he can just go execute people or he's a cop. and he can just stand in front of your house with a gun. And if this guy shows up, he has the right to shoot him. And she had no idea. She thought it literally meant it was a license to kill. So we had an interesting conversation, and I explained to her what the difference between a clip and a magazine was. She started using the word magazine after that. But there are some things that people think you get as soon as you've got some sort of piece of paper from the government, and that's not necessarily true.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me finish my thought that I'm typing, and then I've got something else I want to bring on. Before or as I'm typing, Travis, Defense Dad, anything that comes to mind as far as things people don't always know?
Yeah. And sorry, personally, when we were talking about things people don't know, I was thinking more along the line of new gun owners and things they need to know.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
In addition to just purchasing their gun, i.e., how do you store it? How do you carry it with you safely? That sort of thing. Those are things the new gun owners out there don't know, as far as holsters and safes, and for that matter, what kind of ammo to purchase. Those are things that still going on. I was just at the gun store the other day, and this guy who was purchasing his gun, he's like, "Well, just give me anything. They're all the same, right?" So, and I stood back and I let the salesman explain to him what he needed, but yeah, a lot of these people out there purchasing their gun, they have no idea what else they need to plan for.
That's very, very true. And fortunately, ever since the coronavirus scare took hold, I mean, we do have a ton more people buying guns for the first time. So the resources are out there, all over YouTube, all over a lot of different places online, as far as discussions just like this one that kind of revolve around what the new gun owner needs to know. So that's one of the reasons why we didn't do that here, because there are so many other great chats. It just kind of felt like doing the same thing that everybody else had already done. I didn't feel like I had anything better to add, or a different angle of approach. So I just let those be what they are, and we didn't really do it here. But at the same time, there are a ton of those discussions. So I know Ghost Tactical has a couple good ones on his channel that I've listened to, and I know there's a bunch more that just aren't coming to mind right now. But Travis, did you do any of those even on Caliber Corner as far as what new gun owners need to know? I don't remember if you ever did that or not.
No, because there were so many other videos out there that have been made on it. I just kind of, yeah.
Nope, I'm with you there. So, but yeah, that's very true. And the more info you have, the better prepared you're going to be in any situation, especially when it comes to owning a firearm and being safe with it, and just all around being responsible with it. So that's a very, very good point.
Hey,
now that go ahead.
One that people need to look up to, if you are a concealed carrier, you definitely need to understand the specifics about storage of your firearm on private property, public property, school property. You really go through and read the specifics on that, and the statutes can change. It would probably help you to go back and just kind of glance over and see if there's been any major, because they'll tell you if there's been revisions and updates to the laws and rules. Because there's been a question before, well, can you store a gun, say in a school parking lot? How do you do that legally? What's the law say? You've got to make sure you know it for that state or whatever. But it can get very tricky and very complicated, because it can be a point where you might exit your vehicle to put the firearm in your trunk to lock it, and you might be violating a state policy or whatever rule. Or, I mean, if you can't get to your trunk from the inside of your car. So just, definitely do know those specifics so you don't get caught or don't get in trouble. That'd be a big one.
The good thing is, if we're specifically talking about concealed carry license holders, I mean, that should be part of every state's curriculum, is, what to do when you have to disarm to go into a prohibited area. So, because I know that we covered that in the class that I took, as far as the right way to, or the legal way, I should say, to disarm. Like if you're going to pick your kid up from school, and you just sit there in the parking lot inside the car, and pick the kid up versus if you have to get out and go into the building. Different things apply in Nebraska, and I would venture a guess probably most states that's the case. So that is part of what they taught us in our class. Hopefully every class, that's part of it. So one thing I will throw out there, though, that here's one that not a lot of people think about, probably. I know I didn't until it was pointed out to me. Most of the time when you go to the post office, we all know we can't carry into the post office, right? That's a federal building. So we disarm before we go in, and we do whatever we need to do as far as securing the pistol in the vehicle and locking that up. But most of the post offices are, downtown somewhere where you can just park on the street and then get out and go in. And I don't know how many towns have a post office like we do now, but here in Norfolk, Nebraska, where I live, the post office used to be in the middle of town. Even at that, they had their own parking lot. It wasn't street parking. So it still would have applied then, but they moved their post office to a building that they didn't own, or land they didn't own. They leased it. They didn't renew the lease because they had a former distribution center, and they just moved everything out to there and land the post office already owned. And so they put that building back to use, and that's where the post office is now. You have to drive onto post office property just to get to the parking lot to get out and go in the post office. Even to get to the drive up mailboxes, you have to drive onto postal property. You cannot have it in your vehicle and be legal. So if you are going to a post office where you have to drive onto the property to get there, the only way to be in compliance with the law is to not have your gun at all in the vehicle with you. Now, it would be asinine for me to stop, because you've got to get from the highway to the postal property. You've got to drive about 2 or 3 blocks worth of distance past a semi-trailer repair shop. So I could stop in front of them and get out and put it in the ditch, then drive onto the postal property and then come back, stop, pick it up, hope it's still there, and then go about my business. That would be probably legal. It would be highly irresponsible to just leave it lying there, but it's a thing I could do. But now I know that if I am going to go to the post office, I have to go someplace where I can secure my firearms outside my vehicle, usually take it home, go to the post office, then go back and get it, and then go back to work or go back about my day, whatever I was doing. But that's one that I'd never thought about. I'm not going to say that I ever broke the law before I found that out, but I'm not willing to take that chance anymore now that I know for sure that's the law. So keep that in mind. There are places that are prohibited, but you have to get to get to the building. You've got to go onto federal property. That's a big no-no when you're armed. Even to have a long gun in the vehicle would be a violation of that, I believe, on post office property. So unless you're a postal inspector, I don't think you can get away with carrying a gun in the post office, even on the property. So, or obviously a law enforcement officer on duty, things like that. We all know those exceptions to the rules. But one thing I wanted to mention, though, going back to the concealed carry permit, that is what you said, Squib. That's a point that a lot of anti-gunners try to make and try to, how do I want to say, they want to spin the narrative the wrong direction. And I've seen different interviews, even TV interviews from news outlets with somebody who was a concealed carrier, and the talking head doing the interview was like, well, if you have a concealed carry permit or you go out and about armed, then I'm worried that you're going to just go and try and do the police's job, and you're going to start shooting people that are committing crimes and things like that. And what gives you the right to go and, shoot people in the middle of when they're committing a crime or things like that. And it happened to be a young lady that was being interviewed. And she's like, well, first of all, we're not Batman, and anybody who is a legal licensed concealed carrier, that's not the mentality in their head, at least not if they've got their head right. So maybe that's something that we should just cover here real quick and just dispel that. Again, I don't think anybody who's listening to my voice right now probably thinks that concealed carriers think they're Batman or think they're, Paul Kersey from Death Wish, a vigilante. But the fact remains that a lot of anti-gun people think that that's what we think, that we get that concealed carry permit and we've got a license to kill. And people, misconstrue that all the time. So that's something that needs to be brought up, I think, more often in just the general conversations, maybe, is that, I'm a licensed concealed carrier. I carry a firearm, but I don't want to shoot anybody. I don't intend to shoot anybody. I intend to do everything I can to avoid shooting somebody. But if I'm backed into that corner and the only option is to shoot my way out of it, I'd rather have it and not, I'd rather have it and not need it than one day need it and not have it. But I don't carry a firearm so that I can make other people do what I want. I carry a firearm so that nobody else can force me into doing what they want. And that's what it comes down to. It's to keep myself and my wife, if she's with me, safe. And I'll do everything I can to avoid having to use it. But if I don't think that there's another option to keep myself alive or keep her alive, then that's why I carry the thing. I don't ever want that day to come. I pray that day never comes. I don't want to take a life, not a human life. I'm a hunter, but I don't want to take a human life. And I think that most of us who have concealed carry permits, whatever the initials are for your state, I think that we need to bring that up more often. Maybe if we get into that conversation, don't lead off with that. But if you find yourself in that conversation with somebody who doesn't carry a gun or doesn't own guns, maybe doesn't like guns, we need to make sure that people understand that, I do this because I care about my family or I care about myself, my own well-being, whatever it is. I know that the police can't, if I get attacked, the police can't get there in the half second that would be needed to stop the attack. And so sometimes my safety is up to myself. I'm my own first responder. But the people that think that we want to carry a gun because we want to go around and shoot bad guys, for those of us, again, and I'll try to say this as plainly as possible. For those of us who have our heads in the right place, nothing could be further from the truth. We don't want to go shoot bad guys. We don't want to go stop crimes in progress. We don't want to be vigilantes or superheroes or anything of the sort. We don't want to be 00 agents. We just want to be left alone. And if people choose not to leave us alone, then we've got a way to keep us from getting killed or kidnapped or raped or whatever is the case. And that's why we carry.
Here's the other thing I don't understand. I mean, and I understand the intentions behind it, but Sandhills, you and I both got our CCWs in Nebraska. The fingerprinting process that we had to go through for, did you get the Xerox thing or whatever on you too? You used the machine to scan your prints and everything, like all the angles of your hand and everything. Did you go through that?
Yeah, instead of ink on paper, it was a little scanner, but yeah. So
I asked the guy, I go, why do you need this? I mean, I've already gone through the background check. I've already taken the class. I've already been, initially, approved. She goes, well, we just want to check your records with every enforcement agency we can to make sure that your prints haven't shown up on, any firearm ever used in a crime. And I'm sitting here thinking, if I'm going to commit a crime and I intend on concealing a weapon to commit that crime, why would I go into a police department and get printed? And B, I don't know. It just kind of like, why would I go do it? And I don't even know what my second point was. Like, why would I spend the money if I'm going to get denied anyway, if my prints aren't a weapon that's been used in a crime somewhere? It makes no sense to me at all why we had to go through that part of the process.
Okay, so
put another $100 onto the fee.
Well, I mean, it's $100 at the state patrol for everything. I mean, the fingerprinting and the application and all that. It's $100 to get the permit, and then $50 5 years later to renew it here. But hey, Ghost, welcome. I'm glad you got here first before everybody else. That's awesome. Okay, so now, without sounding too tinfoil hat-ish, Travis.
Yeah.
Here's my thoughts on that, because I've wondered about that too. So I don't think it's because you might have your prints out there in the system already, and the prints would flag something that your background check didn't flag necessarily. It seems to me like the background check through the FBI is going to flag things that maybe your prints wouldn't if that was the case.
You think so? Yeah.
But here's the thing: down the road, if we ever actually have a gun registry, and a gun is committed in a crime, and the gun is registered to you, they're going to have, your fingerprints, or they find a gun with your fingerprints on it, then they know where to go find you.
Oh, but wait, they delete those as soon as they do the background check. Wink, wink.
Of course they do. Of course they do. And it's totally fine to put the make, model, and serial number of a firearm on the same page of the 4473 as your name and address. That's not going to ever cause a problem. They'll never do anything bad with that.
Never.
And here's the other thing. It is very, very important that the ATF knows your gender.
That's all kicking in what, January this year? Is that?
Now, this is completely off topic, but I just got to throw this little rant in there because last Wednesday when we were coming home from Lincoln, I actually kicked on and was listening to Never Enough Ammo, which I haven't really taken time on a Wednesday night to listen to Never Enough Ammo's Guns and Politics chat in a long time. But I kicked it on because I wanted to listen to it while we were driving. And people got to talking about different things in there, and I don't even remember exactly now how it got to the part about the 4473, but they were talking about, if it should be just male or female, or if you should have, the third option, non-binary, or things like that. Honestly, here's my thought, and everybody, I just kind of want to know what you think. So throw a comment in there if you agree or disagree. What difference does it make what gender you are when you buy a firearm? Take that box out entirely. We don't need to argue about whether or not we should have 2 boxes, 3 boxes, 51 boxes. Next year, it could be 117 boxes when new genders come out. They're coming out all the time. But why does that matter? Take that box off. The gender just shouldn't even be a part of a 4473 as far as I'm concerned. But that's just me. Sure save a lot of arguing. So I'd like to know what everybody else thinks out there in the chat. If you're listening after the fact and you can't comment live, drop a comment down below and just let me know what you think about that part. So, okay. So anybody else have anything that you want to bring up as far as, maybe people aren't aware of this or that?
The oldest thing that I've always heard that is a total myth, but people think it's real, is that if somebody breaks into your house and you confront them with a gun and they run out the door, if you shoot them outside of the house and drag them back in the house, you're okay. That's legal. And that is so far from the truth. You cannot shoot somebody who's fleeing. You can't drag them back in the house and suddenly that makes it okay. But I've heard that since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Okay, now I don't know what I just did. I just did something to my window, and I've got stuff that's not supposed to be showing up, and I hit a button somewhere. I can't even go back to the chat window. I can't even do a screen share to show you what I did, and somebody can tell me how to get the heck back.
Oh, you can't see the chat?
Well, I think that's okay. Whew, good deal. I'm back. Thanks, guys, for holding on during my technical difficulties there. I went to type something. You know what? Instead of getting myself in trouble again, here, I'm going to throw this up on the screen. Clover, I agree with you. Let's just remove the 4473 entirely. Ideally, that would be the right thing to do. I'm down. I wish we could just get rid of that altogether. So, and he makes another good point. It does help identify with false flags or people with the same name and getting those delays and things like that. So, all right. I think it's time to start wrapping up unless anybody has anything else that they want to jump in there with, like, other myths or things like that.
Pretty good.
All right. Well, then at this point, we will let everybody just kind of give the their wrap up, any closing thoughts you want to give, and then if you've got stuff coming out on the channel or things you want to mention there, go ahead and do so. We'll just kind of go back around the horn the other direction. So Squib, that means we'll start with you. Thanks for being here. And thanks for the inspiration for the chat tonight.
I try. Thanks for the invite.
You betcha. All right. Defense Dad, glad you were with us again.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Had fun. I got a few things coming out. Just wanted to Squib, your rant videos lately have been entertaining, man. Appreciate those too.
Those aren't actual rants. Those are just
venting.
He's just speaking squibbish.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not even being a smart aleck. I mean, I like them.
If you do, you do. If you don't, you don't. I lost a couple subs over it, and I don't care. I actually think it's kind of funny. And that's just it. If somebody out there says, I don't like your stuff or whatever, you click on their channel and they have no videos. All right, well, make a video of your own. This is an open platform for anybody to do that, right?
That's right. Heck yeah. Yeah, if you don't like what we're talking about, then there's no reason you can't go talk about it yourself with other people. Heck, invite some of us. We'll maybe get a chance to come and talk about it with you on your channel. So we all got started with no videos at one point. I just like to listen, and then I started to comment over in the side or down below, whichever is the case if you're on a computer or on a phone. But people kind of got to recognize my screen name, and then I started talking on Travis's chats, and he got to know my screen name. And one day he said that I could join the panel, and I didn't apparently make a complete fool of myself. So I kept being on the panel, and then I decided to start doing this myself. And now we've got other people who have kind of come in and joined our panels, and now they kind of go do their thing that, they hadn't been in very many chats before they came in here. So I just like to pay it forward. People gave me a chance, and I like to give people a chance too. So very, very fun to get people in here. Like it. Yeah, go talk about whatever you want to talk about. It's YouTube, and as long as you don't break any of the community standards, which are constantly changing and fluid, but you can keep up with those, then go ahead and talk about it. All right, last but not least, we've got Travis P11 in here with us.
Yeah, I got a couple of videos coming out this week, so make sure you check out the channel, Travis P11 on YouTube, and I'm also on Gunstreamer and YouTube and guntube.org, Facebook, Twitter, all that fun stuff. And then Caliber Corner, a podcast. For anybody that doesn't know yet, it's been moved back to Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. So we just talk guns and ammo. We have a good time, and I think we're going to talk about our favorite Milsurp rifles this weekend. Should be some good stuff. So thanks for the invite, man. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then before I forget, I didn't have the camera really adjusted well, but I did
got the shirt,
the Party Foul Pub shirt. If you missed our chat with Party Foul Steve and his wife Tony a few weeks ago, then you're missing out. You need to go back and watch that one. That was cool just to be able to hang out and get to know Steve and Tony, and just be able to. I mean, it was like we were sitting, just on the back porch, just having a couple drinks and just shooting the breeze, and we got to do it live on the YouTube, on the interwebs, and everybody got to hang out with us, and it was kind of cool. I want to do more of that. I want to find some people who aren't necessarily, working in the gun industry, that are just normal people, like the four of us here in this panel, and the ones, the two that we had before that had ducked out, normal regular people that have non-gun related jobs, but we still like to shoot, hunt, collect, reload, whatever is the case. I want to have more conversations with people just kind of hanging out, and then we'll talk a little bit about guns and a little bit about life and some things like that. So I'm not sure what I want to call that series yet, but once I come up with a cool name, maybe we'll get some more people who maybe aren't necessarily known with it, within the gun people circles, but do some other stuff, and maybe they own guns or they like to shoot. Maybe we'll get to offer them the opportunity to go shooting for the first time, and they've never much thought about it before. That'd be kind of cool too. So we'll see what we can get done, and find some people to come in. So if you or someone fits that bill and would just kind of want to hang out, and we'll talk about kind of whatever. It was a fun time, and it not having really any kind of topic or agenda, just kind of freed everything up to just let things kind of go where they went. And that was really nice. So all right, we have got the list, Oh, there it is. It always kind of washes out when I hold that up. So for those of you who are new here, as you come in and comment on the live chat, my wife, Sandhills sweetheart over here, you can't see her, but she's in the same room sitting over there in the producer's chair, making sure that I don't goof this up too badly. And so she keeps keeps a list of everybody who makes those comments. If you're not commenting, then we can't see you out there watching us, and we want to say hi to you, and we want to thank you for coming. And then at the end of the night, we're going to read your name and let everybody hear their name read off that made the comments. So if it's a little late now, but if you catch us next time and make those comments, then you get on the list too. So we had Calaveras 32 Special, Early Watch California, Dale Mogg, Guitar Man Pete, Aaron Mortensen, Justin Gibbons, 402 Outdoorsman. There's a lot of Nebraskans right there in a row. Patriot in the Dark, Blue Steel 44, Defense Dad, Clint Taurus. I kind of feel weird if I don't split that up and say it a little bit slowly. So Clint Taurus, still my favorite screen name ever. G23, Jay Brown, Tim Donahue, Keith Gregory, Vanessa Kitty, Schofield 63, Taco Tom. I have not seen that name. Welcome. Blitz, Boob Sweat Leads to Pearl Necklaces, 10X Shooters, Double A, Guy That Comments, It Was Like Emptiness, 9mm, Squib Lift, Agorizer, Gun Loving Grandpa, Carolina EDC Reviews, Fluffy 10mm Jeep Guy, C4 Defense, AC97, Gizzard Gary, Emily L. Emily joined us for the first time when we were hanging out with Party Foul, and I don't think she's missed one since. New York Outcast, Mike, Mystic Guns, Republican River Rat. I believe we know him by a different name on the panel. Obnoxious One, Idaho Rogers USMC, The Poor Conservative, Squibload, Clovertack, Iron Horseman, Kinky Sphincter, Erstwhile. I haven't seen that name either. Ghost Tactical, who apparently got here first, even though he is at the bottom of the list. He is last, but certainly not least. So anyway, that has been the people that were commenting tonight. On behalf of Duke Liberty, who had to duck out, and Calaveras 32 Special, who had to duck out, thank you very much for being here. On behalf of Defense Dad, Squib, Travis P11, Sandhills Sweetheart, and myself, thanks for joining us. Again, this isn't successful without all of you out there watching and listening. So you are the reason that we do this. Otherwise, we could just get together on a Zoom meeting and talk about these things amongst ourselves. So it's very important that we give credit where it's due, and that is for all of you making this what it is. If you want to go help this grow a little bit bigger and give us some bigger and better equipment, you can always go check us out on Patreon. It's patreon.com/sandhillsshooter, and that's patreon.com/sandhillsshooter. So you can check us out there if you want to help out, support, donate to the channel. You get to see not the live stuff, but all the other videos. You get to see those first before anybody else does on YouTube. We make sure that the patrons get a chance to check it out, plus some other goodies for signing up. And for as little as $1 a month, you can help us out. Now, the cool thing is we don't require it. We're not going to quit doing this. If I lost all the patronage tomorrow, we'd still do it. Okay. I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing it because I just like to connect with people and talk about the things that I want to talk about. And that's why I have my own show, because I get to decide what we're going to talk about every week. So on behalf of everybody I just mentioned, thank you very much for joining us. We love you. God bless you, and get off my lawn.
Afuera de mi yarda, Alicia.
That.